Hello there.
All programmers I know, including myself, are using ChatGPT. They're utilizing it either directly through some third-party user interface or indirectly by using GitHub Copilot. That's because while it does make some mistakes, it is overall really good at writing code. One thing it cannot do, though, is create pictures. It will even tell you so if you ask it for it. However, if you're reminded that some image formats, most notably SVG, are also just code, or in this case a special form of markdown language, there's nothing stopping it from writing pictures for you. In this case, I'm asking it to create a simple purple triangle for me, and it does so with ease. So I was curious about how deep ChatGPT's understanding of the relationship between written SVGs and images really is. To me, the fact that it knows the relationship between this and that is kind of mind-boggling. However, now that you can upload pictures to ChatGPT, let's try the opposite approach. So I made a PNG from the same purple triangle, which means that the information that defines the SVG is completely lost. Then I uploaded it to a new chat, asking ChatGPT to recreate the PNG in SVG. As you can see, it had no problem doing so, minus the fact that it forgot to include the stroke of the shape, but I'm gonna let that slide. As this worked pretty well, I wanted to kick it up a notch and asked it to create a stylized version of our solar system in SVG, and it actually did that without any issues. You have the sun here, then you have the planets in the right order and also with colors that kind of make sense. You have blue for Earth, red for Mars, and so on. I then asked it to put the whole scene against the dark background, and it did. To make the scene more lively and less flat, I asked it to use linear gradients to represent light coming from the correct direction. Notice that I didn't specify that it would be coming from the sun, since I wanted to check if it could make that connection on its own. And it turns out that it can't.
This is so disappointing.
Unfortunately, it put most of the gradients in the wrong direction, meaning that the darker shade is closer and the lighter shade is further away from the sun. Then I asked it to put some dots in the back to simulate other stars in the background. I originally thought that it messed up there, but it turns out that I'm kind of retarded and let the background draw after the stars, which is why they weren't visible. Then I asked it to use CSS animations to make the stars twinkle and give the scene some life. It did so without problems, but the animation was the same for all stars, so I asked it to offset the animation for each star. It originally suggested a separate CSS selection for every star, but like all programmers, I too am allergic to unnecessary repetition, which is why copying and pasting so much repetitive code is out of the question. I then asked it to get its act together and put all of the repetition into a JavaScript function, which it did without hassle. So now, after pasting this JavaScript into my code, I have created this animated SVG in well under 20 minutes. And now I have to have a tough conversation with a guy who helps me with graphic design.